Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been posted by the Orix Buffaloes, and he's coming to Major League Baseball next year. He's going to demand a contract somewhere between, say, $150 to $200 million this offseason. So let's take a look at his NPB data, his pitch shape data, which I got my hands on, and let's find out what we can learn. His repertoire is primarily based on 3 pitches, which if you combine the usage of those 3 pitches together, you get about 90% of the pitches he threw in NPB this year in the sample of data that I have. A 4-seam fastball, a splitter, and a curveball. And we could start with the 4-seam fastball. This thing's pretty good. It's about 95, 97. It averages somewhere around 18 inches of vertical break in NPB, which is pretty stellar, that combination right there. Driveline baseball, if you run this shape through their Stuff Plus model, gives the pitch about a 137, so 37% better than the average 4-seam fastball. Clearly a plus pitch. 14 inches of arm side movement on the pitch as well. So a lot of total movement on this fastball. You'll notice in any video I show of it that it does move a lot to his arm side. Tougher to find a comp for it because of that vertical and horizontal combination. I landed on like Domingo Germán and Michael Lorenzen, 2 guys that get a bit of carry with some run, but Yamamoto's pretty distinct from both of them, purely from a command standpoint, as well as the fact that he's getting like an inch or 2 more carry than Lorenzen, and he's like 4 ticks harder than Domingo Germán. So not totally similar there, but that's as close as I could get from the comp standpoint. His splitter separates from his 4-seam fastball by about 14 or 15 inches on average, which is really strong, especially when you consider the fact that it's only about 6 miles per hour slower than his 4-seam. The interplay of those 2 differences between a splitter and a 4-seam, the drop difference and the velo difference, is a really good indicator of swing and miss at any level, regardless of NPB or anywhere else. So this is a really strong offering. Splitters are nasty in general. I'm most intrigued by the curveball though. There's a ton of total movement on this pitch. I'm curious to see if an MLB org prefers to sacrifice some of that movement for velocity, get the pitch to like 80 miles per hour or so. But as it stands, it does a really good job of generating contact on the ground. The launch angle was below 0, so a lot of ground balls. And it's not just an early count pitch either. He likes to kind of use this deep count. Multiple abilities to kind of manipulate the ball and use it in different counts, I think almost makes it multiple pitches. And the thing that the numbers aren't really going to catch is that Yamamoto has a ton of pitchability. This manifests in something as simple as just walk rate or K-walk ratio, which are both incredible. He's a 3-time kind of NPB Cy Young winner, so to speak, there, equivalent of the award over there. It's a ton of command, a ton of pitchability. I think that has a large bearing on what you think of him as a pitcher. But in the interest of providing some perspective that may not be in line with what everyone in the media is saying, I have not heard a lot of negative things about this guy at all from a shape standpoint or how much he will translate to MLB. And in the interest of providing some other perspective, I think I'm more interested in, I don't know, taking more of a neutral stance on him in this video. Maybe he's thinking he's more average to above, maybe more of a 3 as opposed to a frontline ace. So this may come in this video as me being a bit negative on him, but I do think I'm just trying to check what I've heard, which has been overwhelmingly positive, and showing you maybe some of the negatives and some of the tweaks that he needs to make. And we just saw that the shapes and everything are really strong. The velocity looks great as well. But let's dig into maybe some of the finer points that, you know, indicate maybe there's a little bit of adjustment to be had or some struggle out of the gate. We could do that by starting to look at his 4-seam fastball a bit deeper. And I will point out that his release height is 5.4 feet, which is about 6 inches lower than the major league average. His extension too, how far he's extending down the mound or releasing the ball, is below average. He's just under 6 feet extension, where the league average is somewhere about 6 inches higher than that. And this is likely a byproduct of him just being undersized. He's only 5'10 in height, so he's extending slightly more than his height, but still less than the major league average. And, you know, you combine the only biomechanical factors we have here in the public space, which I'd say are release height and extension, with the fastball shape we looked at earlier, or I could even just throw up right now, which is really stellar on paper. And it is a bit surprising to me that he only had a 21% swing and miss rate on his 4-seam in the sample of games that I have data from in NPB. MLB average for 4-seam swing miss is 22%. So that's a bit surprising to me. You combine that all together, and you could almost argue that the pitch slightly underperformed. We saw a similar thing with Kodai Senga. I did a video on him last year where I looked at his 4-seam fastball, thought there might be some playability issues. Now, he's a very different pitcher than Yamamoto. I think he had better pure stuff. The splitter is maybe a little more unique, which I'll get into in a second. But Senga, I think, had a similar swing and miss, comes over to the States, and that fastball for him went in usage from like 39% down to 33% as the year progressed, as he and probably the Mets organization realized that pitch was not going to play as effectively as they wanted to. And that pitch is the worst at limiting damage and contact in his repertoire now. It's also, I think, the second worst in terms of creating swing and miss. I think you're going to run into a similar situation with Yamamoto, where because he's not generating a ton of swing and miss, I think there's more maybe signal in the results suggesting that he's not able to generate swing and miss on it. Therefore, he comes to the States versus better hitters. Even if the NPB has more contact-oriented hitters, I don't expect the four-seam fastball swing and miss to jump above average, say 23, 4, 5, 6%. I think this is a pitch that does not generate a lot of swing and miss. Can he manage contact on it better than Senga has? I believe so, because of the pitchability, because of some other elements. But overall, I think this pitch will play down to more average, as opposed to everyone kind of consensusly thinking, I believe, from my perception at least, that this pitch is, say, a 55 to 60, an above average to plus pitch. I see it more as a straight average offering, and I think that maybe takes the profile down a bit. Does a team adjust it, etc.? Perhaps. Pitchability is important. NPB hitters are different. There's a lot of variables here, but I'm going and betting on these results, the swing and miss not being great, translating to not great swing and miss in the States. So that leads to a larger prediction, which I'll have later on his strikeout total. But for now, that's kind of what I see overall on the four-seam fastball. Like so many other pitchers in NPB, his splitter is really good. It generated a 38% swing and miss overseas, which would be above the major league average for splitters. And splitters generally in almost any form are the best pitches in baseball at generating swing and miss, limiting hard contact. His splitter gets a good amount of arm side run, about 4 inches more than average. I do think that this makes it slightly less unique of a splitter per se, but I'm going to say we're splitting hairs here. If you look at a guy like Hurston Waldrop of the Braves, who was recently drafted, his splitter is more of like what you call a gyro splitter, where it has less arm side run than average. And that just really makes it a nasty pitch of just falling off the table. This is also why I think Senga splitter or ghost fork, whatever you want to call it, is really unique. He also has a very similar lack of that arm side run to the offering. But because a guy like Yamamoto has so much arm side run in everything he throws, especially the four-seam fastball, his splitter naturally also has that arm side run. So I think that makes it a bit less unique, because most splitters you look at in Major League Baseball do have a lot of arm side run. So it's splitting hairs. I think it's a less unique splitter than average. It's not going to be as good, I don't think, as Senga's, but it's still a really good offering. If you could add any individual pitch to a pitcher's repertoire, it's going to be a splitter. They're the best at limiting damaging contact, or the best at generating swing and miss. So it's a really good offering. I'm splitting hairs here. I just don't think it's as unique, perhaps, as some other splitters in the major leagues. In terms of tweaks an MLB organization might make, I'll point out 2 things. The first one, off the top of my head, is pretty obvious. He didn't throw too much slider in NPB, and I think a major league organization will probably flip him, if he's not already on a sweeper grip, to a sweeper, give him something more laterally going away from right-handed hitters, try to elicit a little more swing and miss. The shape that he was throwing in NPB was pretty good for the most part. I just think you can accentuate it probably with a different grip to get more horizontal movement and make it more of a swing and miss weapon to right-handed hitters. Now, whether that's actually effective, who knows, right? Senga came over to the States, started throwing a sweeper a lot more early in the season, gave up a ton of home runs off it. Then he backed off the pitch, basically didn't throw it late in the year, and opted for more of like a pure gyro slider without as much sweep. That was a really effective offering. So we'll see if Yamamoto takes to the sweeper as well as Senga did, or better or worse. But I do think we need to expect that a major league org is going to look at him and go, get more swing and miss versus right-handed hitters. To do that, let's throw more sweeper. Here's a sweeper grip. Let's see how it does. The other thing I'll point out, because I'm maybe a little more skeptical than others on the playability of the four-seam fastball, I think that there's more room for a sinker in here. He did throw some of them in NPB, and I think I have a shot of him in his grip. He's right on the tracks with it. I'm curious here if there's a different orientation of the ball to get him to kill more spin on it. His sinker overall was fine. I just think maybe there's more incentive to get him on the ground versus right-handed hitters specifically as well. The four-seam fastball that he threw in NPB generated a lot of fly ball contact. The launch angle was above 20 degrees. So if you're putting him in a park per se where right-handed hitter power to left field is short porch, or it allows a lot of damage, I think there's maybe some reason to believe in more of a sinker. And I also think that with a lot of the orientation information we have over here compared to what they have in NPB, that you could end up in a situation where an orientation, a slight orientation to the ball could get him below, say, 10 inches of vertical movement that he's currently getting, more drop on the offering with the same amount of run, and make it a really effective offering. We saw a lot of guys in Major League Baseball who kind of struggle with four-seam fastballs do this. And I do think, again, that pitchability would carry over to the offering. So I'm keeping my eye on whether there's more of a sinker in here. So that's the things I'm expecting. I know they kind of focus more on right-handed hitter approach, but that's my guess as to what a Major League organization tweaks with him. Projections right now have him between 6 and 7 years and 175 to 200 million total in earnings. Maybe the posting fee situation drives that cost down a little bit. I'll point out Zip's projections here on Yamamoto, which are the first I've seen. just to put my takes on record here, because I'm probably a little more cold water on him, especially in this first year. I do like the fact that he's young and he'll improve, but I'm going to take the under on strikeouts in particular. I think he's lower than a 9K per 9 guy, whereas the projections here have him pretty much right at a 9K per 9 guy. Probably take the over on home runs, although I do like the pitchability element. I just think that the fastball might get a little more beat up early in the year than people are expecting. And therefore, I'll take the over on ERA. I think he's maybe more 3.5 to 4 as opposed to right at 3.5. And I'll take the under on WAR as a byproduct of all of that. So that's kind of my projection on. I'll put that on record right there and say that I think he's good. I think he's going to be a pretty good pitcher overall. I just think this contract is more tied to the fact that he's 25. And that maybe it'll take some time for him to adjust into a plus repertoire. It's harder, in my opinion, to get that really high WAR number by not striking out a ton of guys. And if I expect him to not have as strong fastball playability as maybe others are projecting, based on the things that I pointed out here, and the performance specifically in NPB, then I'm going to take the under on WAR and just play it safe, because I don't think he's going to be striking out a ton of guys. So it's a really interesting arm. I think he comps maybe more to like a Masahiro Tanaka than a Senga. I heard that from an individual in an organization. And it makes a lot of sense just from a pitchability standpoint. Short extension, shorter arms, not the same kind of nasty ghost fork and everything that Senga was throwing, an ability to kind of supinate and get some crazy sweep on a slider. But Yamamoto's a different kind of pitcher. He has a ton of arm side run in everything he throws. I do think the contract's warranted. I just think it maybe is something where you're paying for the fact that he's young and he can improve, rather than Senga out of the gate being a nasty ace right off the top and a guy that I think will get Cy Young votes for years to come. So that's what I have on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Let me know what you think in the comments if you have any thoughts on him or any other information. But I hope this was a bit different perspective than what you've heard on him, because everyone seems to be really positive. I tried to pour a little cold water and just be a little more realistic as to what the projections could be in this first year with Yamamoto. Thanks for watching.